I see there are some converging factors, or call it trends or so, but there are some vectors, if you use that term, that are somehow converging and driving the industry in a certain direction. One is the whole notion of that whatever we come up with as an industry, whether it's devices or medicines, has to have an added value. That's pretty obvious, isn't it? Well, it wasn't that obvious, because in the markets that we live on markets, we sell products. That's how we fund. Now we give rewards to our shareholders as well. That's the model. The market tended to reward also copycat products, what we call Me Too's. You can make a good living out of just copying what other people were doing. And that signaling to the market space is not the best signaling. So I think we should all be happy that the fact that you have to show that you add some value, at least for some patients. And this is not about so much adding value in general to everyone, but actually finding out that it works better for this table than for another table. And you're all familiar with this whole discussion on stratified medicine, or if you want to call it personalized medicine. So this added value concept, one of the analysts, financial analysts, and some of them are actually, they're very smart, and they know this industry better than most actually. One of them called this the better than the Beatles problem. I mean, we are all old enough, me included, to know what who they were, and still are. They're still alive, some of them. But you know, you have to be better than someone else. So if you have metformin as oral therapy for diabetes, pretty good product. You know, so whatever you want to have to be better than that, or at least use it in failure. So we have that in a number of specific areas. So of course this is forcing companies to, and it took some time for some companies to actually change, and some may have not been done, that still haven't done it really, weed out these things that don't add value in the pipeline. Then the science is changing, you all know that. You know, I mean, we're actually just beginning to understand diseases. The true reason behind the signs and symptoms we see, which we call a disease. And it's actually could be 5, 6, or even more different reasons why. Whether it's over-regulation, under-regulation, or mutations, or whatever it is. Or, I mean, we're starting to understand this now. All these mappings we've seen the last few weeks and months, you know, with the microbiome, the connectome, you know, we have the junk DNA, not DNA. I mean, you know from your research fields as well that the people that do research are extremely excited about this. The technologies, computational powers that we have now. That's why my research guys are so excited. But this also is a challenge, of course, because all the old paradigms on how you develop medicines, it has to change. Clinical development has to change. The guidelines we have are useless. One of the senior regulators in Europe, the deputy head of the German agency, said publicly at a conference on translational medicine, he said 90% of our guidelines are useless. And in fact, we adopted a new one on schizophrenia a month ago, and it's already outdated. Because it's all based on signs and symptoms and classic disease definition. So we somehow need to, and the top guys in my companies in research, and the top regulators and the leading scientists know this, of course, you know this, that this is changing. And this means that suddenly, you know, it becomes more difficult to succeed. So not only do you have to show this added value, it's also scientifically becoming much more difficult. The cost, we spend those 100 and something billion. We get 25 new products per year about. It's gone up slightly the last few years, but it doesn't take a genius to figure out that's pretty expensive. And we're actually not going to generate the type of income on those products. So somehow those that do invest in the industry somehow must have some kind of hope that this will fix itself down the line. So there is a lot of inward looking and productive inward looking, not navel gazing, but you know, really considerations of what is the right balance. The productivity is not there. Not that we don't get medicines out there; they're coming. There's some pretty good medicines coming out every year. Some breakthroughs already the last year. You know, I can give you examples. But you know, the cost for this is just exorbitant. So we need to reconfigure the whole balance of internal, external. The previous speaker mentioned that is changing. One of my CEOs, Chris Wiebacher from Sanofi, he shocked at least his own employees when he stated in an interview in Harvard Business Review that the best people the best researchers are not in the companies. That's pretty strong to say, but I think he's not alone in realizing that. But there are a lot of smart brains out there that we need to work with in a different way. So this realization, plus the fact that we are losing income from the markets, many of the blockbusters, patents expire, many of the downsizings are not only driven by poor productivity in research, it's just because basically you have to keep delivering the profits, dividends, so you have to cut down, and of course that's sad. I think it's sad for all of us committed to research. Every research site in Europe, where any person laid off for whatever reason, is a tragedy. If they reappear in a life science research configuration, that's fine. But if they end up being, I'm a pharmacist, if you go work in pharmacies, that's fine too, but you're not going to help develop any new medicines. It's a waste. But these loss of revenues forces the companies to reconfigure and rethink how we organize ourselves. And that is why things like collaborations like IMI and similar things is really booming. It's all over the place. Open innovation used to be a bad term in my industry. Today, everyone realizes that there has to be an element of much more of research sharing. So this all results in collaboration with one another between the companies, with academia, in partnerships is happening big time. An example of that is antibiotics, where the industry and the Commission is putting together to start with 400 million euros to try and fund whatever antibiotics research there is. There's not much going on, so let's see if you can make that come along under IMI. But that's not enough, we have to do more. The head of AstraZeneca, Anders, you're here. Your company is one of the few still committed to the cause, and you're there and you're putting in your molecules. And I listened to your research head for anti-infectives, John Rex. He said in one of these meetings we had when we were discussing how to fix this problem, he suddenly, spontaneously, and he interrupted the presenter, said, we have to pool everything we have, otherwise we won't make this. That came straight from his heart. He realized that this was scientifically so difficult to beat these bugs. We're never going to beat them, but we have to keep inventing the new arms, the new weapons. So this is here to stay. Collaboration big time. The rebalancing I mentioned of in-house, external, more virtual organizations. It therefore also becomes even more global, because if those best brains are not with Chris Wiebacher's organization, they're somewhere else, and they could very well be in Singapore, or they could be anywhere in the world. If I come more closely to here and to the field of clinical research that many of you have been involved in various delegations and government inquiries as well, is that this is really, I think we realized this very early in Sweden, and also we'll hear later about the UK, really also having realized that the clinical research in the future is going to be much more about what I call longitudinal. It's about being in a place for a longer period of time for a translational researcher. So take this through the various stages of disease, various phases and clinical development into the marketplace. The regulators are thinking the same way. We have to have progressive licensing, we have to have stepwise approvals. We need to release things maybe just for this table first to figure out whether it's worth it or not. Also, if it's worth it or not from a money perspective, and whether the effectiveness in real life is really there, whether you adhere to therapy or not. Things like this. And then maybe expand, maybe make it more precise. So the whole model for drug development is not fit for the science.